We pass through the entrance to the enormous university building. The floor of the wide, high-ceilinged atrium we cross is the same phosphorant patterned rainbow as the outside. It feels that no sooner have we gone in than we're outside again, out into a courtyard? Of course. Terrans and Raquali both share a fondness for courtyards, though not for the same reason. Raquali appreciate buildings with courtyards because they can allow for more convenient access to the outside, meaning that if you need to fly somewhere, your time to take off is reduced. Humans seem to value them for almost the opposite reason. The ability to have a space outside that is protected by walls from the many threats of their cradle world. I don't believe they ever coexisted with aerial creatures that might have threatened them, unless you count disease-bearing insects, which can also get inside. And wasn't there an island in their southern hemisphere where humans coexisted with a gigantic eel that hunted quarret-like massive land birds until Terrans hunted its food source to extinction, and it died out too? I wonder if the natives of New Zealand built courtyards. Most other species look at courtyards as a waste of space. There's outside, after all. Why would you bring it inside and not use that floor space for more building? I'm glad Terrans and Raquali share a similar design aesthetic. It makes visiting their worlds much more enjoyable than visiting the drab, functional, boxy cities of concrete and glass that are ubiquitous across so much of the rest of the galaxy. So few species appreciate the art of architecture, city design, shipbuilding, and similar disciplines. Having crossed the courtyard, we make our way into the reception, back onto that multicolored patterned floor. Messiah speaks to the receptionist. How goes it this evening? I'm Dr. Messiah Sumberi, here to see Dr. Nakazoki Sumberi, with my crewmates and captain, to make a delivery to the Deaf Wild Faunal Taming and Domestication Research Department. We're not delivering these two, though. Just the ones on the trolley. He gives a wink. The woman raises an eyebrow at him, the shing still mounted on his back. She taps the screen in front of her, and frowns slightly before saying, Sorry, Dr. Sumberi, but Dr. Sumberi works in conservation, not taming and domestication, doesn't she? Yes, quite so. However, she is the one who has made this contact between us and her colleagues. I thought it proper to ask for her rather than asking to go straight to taming and domestication. I also am ashamed to say that I did not think to ask the names of the people she is connecting us with. I believe she should have left a message explaining the situation. Her eyes flick back down to her screen, and she taps a few more times. Ah, here we are. Her eyes flash rapidly, back and forth, as she reads the text. Sorry for the confusion, Dr. Sumberi. You can go on up to your sister's office. 7th floor, right out of the lift, 12th door on your left. He smiles and nods. He does not ask her to send a map to his hollow. He doesn't even ask her to repeat the instructions she rattled off, to give himself another chance to internalize them. He simply walks from the desk, leading the procession to the lift, the shings adjusting their weight, in accordance with his sway as he walks. We enter the lift, and Victor makes approving noises about the fact that the building levels are numbered by floor, not by story, making Dr. Sumberi's office, correctly, according to Victor, on the 7th rather than the 8th. It really doesn't seem to matter to me, but it apparently does to Terrans, because the rest of the journey is taken up with a lively debate about the merits of both systems. The lift reaches the 7th floor, and the shings and I hop down from our respective platforms, as the corridor is empty. Silence falls, as Messiah turns to face the door of, presumably, his sister's office. The nameplate reads, Office of Dr. Felicity Mink and Dr. Nakazoki Sumberi, Deaf World Conservation Department. He knocks. A few moments pass before a woman who is the spitting image of Messiah, with the exception of her hair being bright blue, comes out, scowls, and punches him in the arm. There are a few moments where I believe that we have been ambushed. A punch that hard could only have been intended to kill, after all. Why am I the only one who seems to realize we're being attacked? No one else is reacting. She wouldn't have punched him like that in front of a group this size if she didn't have reinforcements of her own, surely. Hastily, I look left and right. No one. I look into the room behind her. It does not appear to be teeming with assassins. Then our assailant pulls her brother into a deep hug as he nurses his arm. You fucking idiot, she exclaims miserably. You gallivant off to the stars. You're gone for years. You only call twice a month, and now I found out you've been fighting fucking pirate slavers. Oh, and let's not forget, shooting a dorm with a fucking mug beast and her litter. No offense. That latter aimed at Fluffy. Not offending. Kin dangerous being if wanting. Good careful being, but not wanting hurting uncle, responds Fluffy. Messiah, His face caught between expressing a smile and expressing his clear continuing pain at having been delivered a bone-crunching punch, pats his sister's back and says, "It's good to see you too, Cass. I'll try to call more often." She straightens up and responds, "You're better. Now, why don't you and your friends come in and we can do introductions?" We file into the large shared office. Its other occupant is a feline woman with heterochromic eyes, entirely black fur, a white patch at her mouth, and a mop of head hair in deep indigo. "Dr. Zimberry," nods the Catwoman with a scowl. "Felicity," replies Messiah, with a crestfallen frown. "I wonder what that's about." "Nobody mind those two. They used to fuck," declares Messiah's sister. "Well, I didn't have to wonder long. This Zimberry is certainly blunt. She's quite different from her soft-spoken, mild-mannered brother." Introductions are made between our party and Drs. Zimberry and Mink. When I am introduced as Messiah's captain, his sister hesitates very slightly. Her eyes narrow for but a moment. Is she appraising me? The Merklers receive many scritches and admiring oohs and ahs from the two women. Eventually, Dr. Zimberry announces that it's time to depart for the taming and domestication department. She informs us that, though it's on the same floor, it is rather a trek. It is indeed a trek. It's almost exactly on the other side of the building and takes several minutes to walk to. As we navigate our way there, we are treated to a spectacular view of the courtyard, surrounded by the vibrant sides of the university's main building, through the windows of the corridor. We arrive, and are invited into a large room that is a discordant maelstrom of activity. There are many dozens of creatures tumbling, running, playing, sleeping, squawking. They are mostly of the third variety, but there are also reptiles, avians, and a few whose order I can't even identify. The Terrans in our group have instinctively formed a wall of their bodies to protect me and the Shings. They're very right to do so. The activity of all those dense little death world potential pets makes this an unsafe environment for those of our fragile constitution. I don't know if they even notice themselves doing it. I think they may have just all unconsciously put themselves between the fragile ones and the sources of potential breakage. I now notice there are also a few animate dendroid and herbaceous creatures frolicking among the others. It seems not even plants are safe from Terran's all-consuming love of cute. At this point, a very sweaty but very happy-looking man disentangles himself from the flurry and makes his way to us through the throng of flaming fuzz that various Terrans are tending to, playing with and chasing after. The man introduces himself as Dr. Raul Gomez and has all of us introduced to him by the combined efforts of the Zimberries. Messiah's sister barely needs help to remember all of our names. He asks if we wouldn't mind coming to the room, in which his colleague is preparing to receive the Merklets. We begin making our way down the side corridor that he indicates. He draws nearer and breathes a relieved sigh. "Oh, that's nice. Your climate control fields feel amazing with how hot I am." I frown. "Why don't you climate control the room if you find the heat so unpleasant?" I ask quizzically. He chuckles. "If we did that, the beasts wouldn't like it. Those ones in there are ones that thrive in Zanzibari-like climates. I guess we could wear a personal one like yours, but then the little ones wouldn't want to come near me, and that would break my heart. It's better this way. It means I get to play with them and enjoy the relief of stepping back into the cool. It is always a bit of a relief when the rota was me tending cooler climb animals, though." Interesting. With how much your species loves playing with cute things, I'm surprised there are any Terrans who are willing to tolerate doing a job other than yours. You're willing to put up with regular risk of heat stroke for it, after all, I quip. He laughs heartily and responds, "Yes, it definitely looks like a dream job, but don't be fooled. There's a lot to it. That's not as fun as playtime. I have had quite the collection of bites in my time. There's the cleanup, the paperwork, but I definitely wouldn't trade places with anyone," with clear fulfillment. We come to a door which Dr. Gomez indicates as the room prepared for the Merklets. The door is open to reveal a wide, tall room with a flat area in the middle, surrounded by a rough, unevenly surfaced bowl, with oak bushes here and there, seemingly mimicking the rocky terrain of a Teskia-Freeze Twilight Zone. The room is dimly lit, and a wall-mounted temperature gauge reads 12 degrees Celsius. My translator informs me that is around 2/3 of the way between the freezing point of water and the temperature my climate field is set to. In the corner, there is a man alternately tapping away at his holopad and glancing up at the room. "Lul!" shouts Dr. Gomez, causing the other man to start. He apparently hadn't noticed us come in, so a Terran is capable of being taken by surprise, though seemingly only when engrossed in a task, and in an area that they consider satisfactorily safe. The man puts his holopad away and jogs over to us down the rough slope, which barely seems to give him trouble.
Peace be upon you. I'm Dr. Lou Sabir. It's a pleasure to meet you, he says,
slightly breathlessly. Victor extends his hand and says, and upon you peace. They shake hands as Dr. Sabir gives an amused smile. Another round of introductions follow. This is a fantastic recreation of the landscape and climate of Eteskia, declares Victor. Dr. Sabir smiles abashedly.
Yes, well, I did my best with the information you sent and what was available publicly. The moment of truth will be what the mother thinks of it. Are you willing to let us remove your climate controls, ma'am?
Fluffy responds,
Yes, seeing if good for Kinchar's being.
Would you do the honors, sir? Dr. Gomez asks Victor. Victor nods before coming to Fluffy's lower left shoulder and switches off the generator, deactivating the climate field for her front half. How's that, Fluffy? Queries Victor. Good? Too warm? Too cold? Fluffy's eyes narrow.
All removing, then telling.
Victor nods and moves to a haunch to deactivate the generator clipped into her fur there. It's unusual for a being to be so long as to require 2 generators, but Fluffy is an unusual being. Dr. Sabir suggests,
if that isn't immediately unpleasant, why don't you try moving around a bit? If anything's wrong, just come back and tell us.
Dipping that enormous head in a Terran nod, Fluffy darts off over the uneven terrain surrounding the middle of the room. The speed and silence with which she passes over the ground, coupled with the half-light and her coloration, mean that I have tremendous difficulty keeping track of her. It's frightening to imagine being an Etesquian prey animal with a merbeast stalking me. After a minute or so of frolic, Fluffy returns to the middle of the room and declares,
Perfect bean, horizon bean, coolth bean, perfect bean,
clearly out of breath. As a stealth ambush predator, her stamina is about on par with Toon's, and less like that of high-stamina Terrans. There is a general hubbub of relief that it seems no adjustments need to be made. Then Dr. Gomez says, Well then, I believe all that remains is to interview Fluffy and Victor, just to see if there's anything further we can divulge to adopters about the experience of being the guardian of a merbeast and a merbeast pet. Victor starts. Maze actually has...
Feather grandmother coming,
interrupts Fluffy. That was not a request. Doctors Gomez and Sabir look quizzically at her, then at Victor, then at me. She's saying she won't speak without Cat being there, states Victor.
Oh, well, I don't see any issue with that,
Dr. Sabir says, looking to Dr. Gomez for confirmation. None at all. It might actually be good to get a garden warder's perspective on the relationship and experience of sharing a ship with a merbeast. If Fluffy wants her in the interview, we're happy to have her in the interview, beams Dr. Gomez. Speaking of, smiles Victor, Mage, over there, has a list of people who have indicated interest in adopting a merbeast. One was a man we met on the way here who reckoned his granddaughter might like one. Everyone else is one of the ones we rescued. We sort of did some informal therapy sessions with them. They're all garden wilders. We said we weren't sure how feasible it would be for them to look after a deaf wild carnivore, but the ones we didn't put off with that said to pass on their details. Ooh, that's actually fantastic, exclaims Dr. Gomez. You have no idea how much sifting we've had to do to weed out people just looking for a fashion accessory. I'm particularly worried about the purple one, Gloom. Purple is fashionable right now, and I think there's a non-zero chance that he'll be adopted, taken to a few parties and then abandoned. If you've already gotten people with an emotional connection to or sincere interest in them, that'll make things much easier. It's not ideal that they're garden warders, or that they're recent trauma victims, but if they can prove they'll meet all the other requirements, they'll get their preference over people from our lists. Krish looks outraged. There are people who adopt an animal just to take it to a party, then abandon them rather than returning them? Dr. Sabir nods unhappily.
It's quite a problem. It's a crime, of course, but they'd have to be caught. Returning a pet that you're done using as a prop is just enough extra effort that those with no conscience prefer to just take them somewhere remote, kick them out of the transport and fly off. Usually nature does its work, but sometimes abandoned pets become invasive species and need to be culled off. It's terrible, and we do our absolute utmost to filter the kind of person who would do that out of our pool of potential adopters.
I look around and see that every Terran face, bar Sabir's and Gomez's, is twisted in disgust. Hasake's is also twisted in disgust. The Shings are showing concern. Mine is... oh, mine is twisted in disgust. Terrans are so noble so much of the time, that the idea of any of them being so callous, so heartless, rankles me. I suppose anything you can say of Terrans, the opposite is also true of some of them. Sorry to have to bring that up, says Dr. Gomez. I'll get that list off Dr. Zumberi and then we can begin the interview. I smile. These seem like good terms with us now. One interview later. Alright, Fluffy. As you're not quite done winning the book list yet, would you be happy to stay here at the university for a while? You can finish with that, and while you're here, you can help us find loving homes for them, asks Dr. Sabir. Fluffy's eyes narrow suspiciously. Starcave not leave me on hot? Victor laughs. I ain't leaving you here, baby. I'd hijack the ship myself to come back for you, if we left without you, while jiggling her torso with hearty, reassuring pats. I frown. Maybe, as my head of security, you shouldn't so fully admit to a willingness to hijack my ship, Victor. No, you have my permission to hijack the ship, should that circumstance arise. There is general mirth at this. All right, staying. Helping find homes for kinchilds, nods Fluffy, seemingly satisfied that she will not be abandoned. Was it because abandonment was mentioned earlier? That's quite an abstraction to make for a semi-sapient. We re-enter the Merklet's adapted room to see all of our companions, joined by a few of the department's researchers, admiring the whizzing and whipping of Merklets around the uneven, upward-sloped ground at the sides of the room. Fluffy joins and immediately becomes the convergence point for her children. All done? asks Messiah's sister. Think so, answer Victor and Dr. Gomez in unison, before attempting to jinx each other, whatever that means. My translator is saying something about curses. Alright, who's up for a drink? Asks Dr. Zumberi. There is some conferring before it is determined that all the Triple M's, bar Christian Hasaka, would like to come for drinks. The sheens indicate that they would like to be conveyed back to the ship by the two Triple M's, and not to come for drinks. Cap? Asks Victor. I have a choice to make. I'll come for drinks, I think. Though, I'll need to have something with no alcohol.